Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lina and today we're doing a book haul. So I've actually never done a book haul before. It's very new to me. I don't actually buy this many books. How many do I have?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
12 books. I bought 12 books. That is like unprecedented. But I don't really feel bad about it because I picked up these books on my travels in independent Parisian bookstores. And I have a video coming soon, hopefully, if I don't get drowned by schoolwork. That's taking you on a Parisian bookstore tour, so that's nice. And also, this video is brought to you by Culture. Kidding, it's not an actual sponsor, it's just that my mom actually gets those from her job, and it's basically like a checkbook, but instead of like actual checks, you get 10 euro checks to spend at any cultural institution or anything that sells cultural goods. So I could spend it on concerts or museum or a theater, but none of those things are happening now. So I just spend them on books. So yeah, let's get to it. First one is Une maison de poupée by Henrik Ibsen, A Doll's House. So why did I buy this? I bought this because I've been trying to read more plays that are not inspired by Greek mythology, and I've been recommended this as like kind of a proto-feminist text. It's basically the story of like a family, and especially a mother within this family, that has kind of this very happy exterior, except that there are cracks. And to me, it's an evergreen story. Like, it's a classic. We always want more of this. This is why, like, stories about the inside and the skeletons in the closet of seemingly perfect families are always interesting. So then I got another play in translation, this time from Chekov. It's Ivanov and La Mouette. Same reason. And also La Mouette, actually in a TV show, I heard an actress say a few lines from this, and I was so moved that I was like, oh shit, I have to read this. So yeah, also I've been dying to read from some of the Russians that everyone's been raving about. So hopefully it's good. I have no idea what it's about. Like, genuinely, I just picked it because it was Chekov and La Mouette. And then we have this book that I had to get for one of my classes. I'm supposed to write a critique on this. It's called Les Minuscules by Pierre Michon. No idea what it's about because the back is not actually a summary, it's a quote. And the professor didn't say anything, so yeah. Next one we have My Beloved, Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. I talk about this book all the time. It's my best reading experience I've had in high school. It's about this woman, Emma Bovary, who lives in the French countryside on the west of France. And she gets married to a doctor, and she has all of those ideas on like marriage and love and like motherhood and everything that were mostly plucked from novels. And when her life doesn't really goes according to those ideas, she kind of desperately tries to pursue them to their end. It's kind of a tragedy, but that's also why I love it. I think that Flaubert is really good because he's very witty and he has like this kind of touch. It's quite interesting, but at the same time, he does have quite a bit of compassion for his protagonist, even though he's kind of making her into a cautionary tale. But I could talk about this for ages. I do kind of want to do a reading vlog of this. I don't know, maybe, tell me. Then we have another book I've had to read for class. This one I finished already. It's King Kong Theory by Virginie Despentes. It's essentially a feminist pamphlet, manifesto, I don't know. It's a manifesto regarding womanhood and relation between men and women and sexual violence, and there's a lot going on there. But yeah, it's a very interesting book. It's very violent in its language and its subject, so I wouldn't advise it for everyone. It's definitely not a feminism 101 book. I mean, the author Virginie Despentes is quite a controversial figure in France. Recently, France is, the feminist landscape in France is kind of sucks. Like it's very much like the UK in that it is very white feminism thing, and it's very like, it has kind of transphobic brilliance. I mean, it's not, yikes. And recently she did take a stand for the Black Lives Matter movement in France, etc. I mean, she's very politically engaged, and she's had some scandals because she wrote a book that was adapted into a movie, which was censored because of the violence and the sexual violence in the movie. And it's actually quite rare to have movies be censored in France. So that was a huge deal in the early 2000s. This was written in the mid 2000s, but it's still painfully accurate. I think it's an interesting book because it really plays on this idea of the binary, but in a self-aware way. So it's like, I was often irritated by the use of the binary in this book until I understood that it was more a device than an actual belief of the author in this strict binary. So it's interesting, but it's really, you have to be in a certain mindset to read it. Next. Another book I have to read for class. So many readings. And this one is L'autre George à la rencontre de George Eliot, de Mona Ozouf. It's a non-fiction book that kind of draws comparisons between George Eliot, the English writer, and George Sand, the French writer, who were both women who took on the pseudonym George to write and not be really bothered by assumptions that critics and readers would make about their womanhood. And so I don't know much about George Eliot or about George Sand, even though I kind of read about her I read a few books from her, but not really in depth. I don't know much about her major works, and so I think it's an interesting look. And honestly, I picked this one from a list of books that were like very lackluster. So, and also I got this collection of short texts by ernaux, including Autres Casanova. It was €2, and I got it because the checks that I buy my books with, you cannot get your change. And so since they're €10 checks, and this book was €8, I didn't want to waste my money or pay the full €8. So I got this. I don't know anything about ernaux. I actually, a lot of my French professors mention her work, but I don't like remember what they say about her. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, sir. Then I got another nonfiction book. I'm really on a roll right now. L'érotisme by Georges Bataille. I was just browsing a bookshop and I actually have been trying to read Georges Bataille for a while because one of my Tumblr mutuals talks about Georges Bataille a lot and like reblogs a lot of his quotes. And so I was like, oh yeah, it was around Valentine's Day. And I was like, oh, eroticism, like what does it mean? What is it? And so I think it would be interesting to read about. So yeah, that's it. Interesting. Oh, and I just opened it and it opened to a picture which I can't show you because it's not very family friendly. But yeah, yeah. I think Georges Bataille is a controversial writer, right? I don't know. It feels to me like he is. Then you've already probably seen this book if you watch my poetry video, but André Breton, Clair de Terre, is one of his poetry collections. One of my favorite poems of all time is in there, so I had to get the rest. Then, what do we have? Eesh. They're really, like, they're slipping away. We have another poetry book, this one by Virginie called Combien de solitudes, which is contemporary poetry, I believe. It's from a woman who is from the Martinique, which is an island, an overseas island that is part of France. Even though, I mean, it's complicated, but colonial legacy, you know. And I got it at Présence Africaine, which is a book that specializes on Africa and the African diaspora. So I was really feeling like I was actually in the bookshop actually looking for poetry from a Black woman. So yeah, excited to read it. Then what do we have? Then we have the literary sensation of the year in France. It's L'Anomalie by Hervé Letellier. Basically won the biggest French literary prize, which is Le Prix Goncourt. And like has one of the most impressive sales of a Goncourt winner. And it's a story about a New York-Paris flight which just disappears from the face of the earth and then reappears, but in two different places at the same time. So like usually I am not huge on like, I feel like no wait, so I don't know, that really intrigued me because it gave me kind of a Lost vibe, even though I was never really into Lost, but I don't know, that was a huge thing, right? It gave me a Lost vibe, and I think also it's going to be adapted into a TV show, and I don't know, I want to see what it's going to be like. I'm very curious. Really, curiosity got to me because sometimes when you read the summary from some of the prize winner, you're like, right, that seems a bit conceptual and weird, but like this is paranormal, this is like the supernatural, it's like magic, so intrigued. And finally, a book I've talked about at length from an author I've talked about a lot, In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. Honestly, I don't even know what to say about this book. It's her memoir that chronicles her relationship, her abusive relationship with another woman, and that does so using various literary and cultural and pop culture references. And I think it's just a brilliant book, and it has a very like in-depth look at like I guess queerness in society and the kind of mechanics of abuse and how these two things intersect, and it's just so good. Like, I don't know, I listen to it as an audiobook, and the author reads the audiobook. So, you know, I'm more of a physical book person, and I really love like underlining, which is why I bought it, because I just loved it so much that I wanted to like own it, you know. So yeah, this was my haul. I hope it was fun for you, or that you discovered maybe books you haven't heard about yet. I Oh yeah, if you are interested in like me doing a vlog, a reading vlog of some of those books, or doing reviews, more in-depth reviews, I'm totally open to it. Just tell me in the comments, and I will try to get to it in the next few weeks, hopefully, because wow, things are going crazy. But yeah, have a nice day, and bye.